Hey everyone, I just want to discuss here today that if you're renting in Germany and you are looking for an apartment, uh, there are some online agencies that will help you to get a lease and to get an apartment. And one of those online ones is called Wunderflats, wunderflats.com. Now, I used this agency before a few different times, and it worked for me. Like, I used it for 2 times when living in Hamburg and Dusseldorf, and it went pretty smoothly. Now the third time it was a huge problem because I paid the service fee of $249 after I found an apartment that I liked. The deposit was only 500, I'm sorry, euros. The apartment was only 500 euros and for the security deposit, and I believe it was 1,600 euros or 1,800 euros a month. And I went with it because the security deposit was so low, and in Germany you might not get your security deposit back for up to 6 months, and that's normal. So I really needed that, low security deposit. And in the listing it said that people that lived there before said that the neighbors didn't mind any noise, and I have kids that can be pretty loud, so I was like, okay, this is perfect. So I put in my booking request for 3 months with the option to extend, and I got the apartment, and I paid the 249 euro fee for Wunderflats to create the rental agreement. So when they created the rental agreement, I signed, and I asked the landlord for my registration paperwork so that I can bring it, quickly right away to the place where you register your residence, because I needed to do that in order to get my residency permit. So I wanted to get that right away. I asked for it right away, and the landlord was not really communicating, and there was some contradictions with the deposit information, their bank information, because the landlord had an address in Ukraine and an address in Germany. So I don't know, that was confusing for me, and I don't know really what happened, but so when I asked for the registration form, it took them a while to get it to me. I had to message Wunderflats and tell them, like, hey, I need this, I asked for this and I'm not getting it. And once I did that, they responded with the registration form. And on the registration form, as soon as they sent it to me, I think it was on WhatsApp. Yeah, it was on WhatsApp. I looked at it, and it said that the owner was SAGA something. And I could tell right away that it meant that it was like a social housing unit. And for people who are from USA and they don't understand what social housing is, it's like public housing, or like Section 8 here in the US. But in Germany it's called social housing. And so I really didn't know what to think, because I really wanted to go to Germany to live in a really nice neighborhood and provide my children with a really nice apartment, which is why I was paying so much for the apartment. And nothing against social housing or public housing, but if I wanted to do that, and I would be paying less, and I would be looking for that specifically, but I wasn't, and I didn't. So when I saw that, I immediately contacted Wunderflats, and I said, there's some issues with depositing the money, and also with making the appointment to hand over the keys, and this registration form that said the owner's name, and I'm starting to feel like this is a scam. And I messaged them. They responded right away. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna handle this right away. And then the owners, I don't really remember exactly what happened, but I know that I ended up getting the right information to deposit the security deposit, and I ended up scheduling the appointment to get the keys and the registration paperwork. I didn't really hear an answer back to, And when I went to go register my residence at the office, they seemed a bit confused. They're like, oh, somebody's already registered here, and I don't think we can register you. And I kind of demanded, like, yeah, we need to register here because this is where we live. Here's our lease. Here's everything that you need to register us. But, we have to get this done because I really needed my residence permit and I'm living there. So I need to be able to register there. There's nothing else that can happen. So she ended up registering us anyway. I don't know how, but in the apartment, I could see signs everywhere about SAGA and how, all this different information just showing this is actually a SAGA public housing, social housing apartment. And I spoke with the cab driver who drove me originally to my apartment, and he told me that the units were going for like 600 euros, and I'm over here paying 1,600, So, that really upset me too because the apartment was not clean. Like all the furniture had like stains. I think the people that lived in the apartment before me had a child, and so like I don't know, I think there was just like stains from that and like all different like stuff. Like there was a closet that was filled with stuff, like just filled with all kinds of blankets and stuff like that. And there was so much boxes and things like that in the house. And I'm like a minimalist and I like to have things very clean, and I know that all that extra stuff is adding a lot of extra dust and there's no room for us to put our stuff. So that was frustrating for me. And then with the stains on the furniture and the dust and the cobwebs and like the spider issue, and the wash machine wasn't working and the internet wasn't working the first few days, it was just too much. And even eventually the internet stopped working and the wash machine stopped working, and I wasn't even getting help with that, but that's later on. So in the meantime, I'm investigating this situation and figuring out, what am I supposed to do? Because I know that I'm not supposed to be living here. And even like on the mailbox, they had me put a piece of paper over the name and put my name on it and tape it on the mailbox and on the call box of the apartment. So even I'm the only person in the building that has a mailbox and call box that has a white piece of paper with my name. Everybody else has like a gold plated inscribed nameplate. So I knew it really felt like I wasn't supposed to be there, and I felt like I could be kicked out at any moment once somebody found out, and I didn't agree to this. So I paid for a Tenants Association membership, and I explained the situation to them, and they said, it's very hard to get housing in Hamburg, so I wouldn't like just immediately move out until you find a new place. But yeah, basically you're not supposed to be there, and at any moment you can be kicked out. And that's when I started, trying to find another place to live. And I couldn't find one. Like I put in applications and looked everywhere. I was like trying my best to find another place to live, and it just didn't work out. And I contacted Wunderflats again, and I told them, the situation, after I started talking to the landlord about it, because things stopped working and no one was doing anything about it because they were in Ukraine. So when the wash machine stopped working, the landlord had me communicate with a third person, a lady, and he wanted me to communicate with her the whole time, and he was really rude. He was just really rude. So when I told her about the wash machine, she's like, oh, well, go find one that you can get on Facebook Marketplace and let me know, and also look on this other website and find one that's under 100 euros or something like that. And then I'm like, I don't have a car. I don't know how to transport stuff. And she said she would set it up, and it never happened. So I ended up having to take me and my kids' laundry all the way to the laundromat, take like 2 or 3 buses all the way to the laundromat and back like 2 times a week. And it was just very difficult because the laundry basket's very heavy, and it's not a rolling laundry basket. So I had to like hold this big huge laundry basket that's like half my size, bigger than half my size, and walk it and bring it on the bus. And it just looked really ridiculous too as well. But it took a lot of time as well and money. And so when I had started contacting them about all these different issues with the house, you know, there was other issues as well, like a tile that was missing under the shower that exposed like all under the shower, and you know, the internet stopped working. That's when I finally just was like, okay, so please give me proof that this is not an illegal sublet, because I also knew that I had also already emailed SAGA and told them, hey, I'm in this apartment. I don't think that I'm registered here, that this is legal. You know, I emailed them to the email address that was listed in the building so many times, and they never responded. And so I knew at any point someone was going to find out something and I was going to be kicked out. So at some point I was like, okay, I'm just going to confront the landlord and say, hey, please provide me with proof that this is legal and that I'm allowed to be here. And they told me basically, oh, we've been renting this out before. It's not a problem. You don't have to worry. But they wouldn't confirm it was legal. So they're basically saying, yeah, it's illegal, but you know, no one's going to find out. Nothing's going to happen. And I didn't pay the rent because I knew if I paid the rent and I got kicked out like a week later, I wouldn't get my money back. Or even if I paid the rent for all the months, it was unfair because everyone else is paying $600 and I'm paying $1,600 for the same apartment, which I understand. I signed the contract to pay. I understand that that's not a problem. So when I messaged my landlord, I told him like, hey, you know, give me proof of what your rent is and that's what I will pay. And I was willing to pay that. But he wouldn't give me proof, and he was so rude. He was like saying the rudest stuff to me, talking to me so disrespectfully. And I would respond with like, you know, a professional letter that I had typed up and signed and everything, because at that point I'm not going to message him back and forth on WhatsApp and have to deal with someone's disrespect. So I wanted to make it as professional as I could. So when I started sending professional letters, he was even rude about that. And so I couldn't get through to him, and I wasn't going to pay him the full rent. I told him I would pay him what he pays for the rent. And so he had started to threaten me. I went to the police and they told me, you know, this is a civil matter. There's nothing they can do about him, you know, harassing me. Like he was having the lady that he had me go through email me and message me, and I told her stop emailing me and stop messaging me because I didn't sign a contract with her. I signed one with him, so I need to speak with him directly. I'm not going to speak with a third party. Even though she was more kind and nice, I needed to be more direct and work exactly with the person that I signed this lease with. And if he can't handle his emotions or his behavior, that's going to be his problem. So she was harassing me and he was harassing me and calling me names and all this other stuff. And then finally he said he was gonna come there and didn't give me a time, didn't give me a date. So I felt like it was a threat, and it sounded just like a threat. And I called I think I called the police or told them about it, and they're like, okay, this is a civil issue, you know, this isn't like a criminal thing, so there's nothing we can do. So they did come. They ended up, some guy came, he like ran up the stairs to my apartment, and I could tell he ran because he was out of breath when he got to the top, and I was living on like the 7th floor or something. So he knocked on my door, and I could hear the lady talking on the phone. So before I even opened the door, I knew it was them, so I hit record on my phone and I opened the door, and she's talking through the phone to me because I don't think the guy knew English, and she did, and they're Ukrainian. So she's telling me like, oh, the landlord said this and that, and you need to do this. And I said, stop harassing me, stay away from me, or I'm going to call the police. And in fact, I'm going to call them right now. I closed the door and locked it, and I called the police. And by the time they got there, they had already left. And the police were looking at me like, why did you call us if they already left? And I'm like, well, I don't know where they are. I don't know. They came to the house and were harassing me, so that's why I called. And I don't know if they took a report or not, or just, I don't know. Because when I asked for, proof of these reports, they told me I have to have a lawyer give me this proof. And, in the United States, if you make a report or call to the police, you can get that information yourself. So I really didn't know how to get the information about the calls and stuff like that, and I still don't. So by that time, after that, I knew I had to leave. Like, I literally had to go. I got all my stuff packed. It wasn't the end of the lease. It was almost the end of the lease, but it wasn't. And so if I had paid the rent that month, I would have lost out anyway. I went to a hotel, and I had to get back to USA because there was nowhere in Germany for me to stay. Throughout this whole time, I was working with the housing, I think it's called some type of housing organization that they help people with housing in Hamburg. And they acted like they were going to help me the whole time. Like, I literally was talking to them for months. I signed all their paperwork. And until I got residency, they didn't really want to help me, or they couldn't. And so finally, when I got residency, I'm like, oh, they're going to help me like get into housing or something. And they didn't. And so at that point, when I was like, okay, I have nowhere else to go, I messaged them, and they're like, oh, unless you have $0, which you have money left, we can't help you. Like, here's an address of where you can go when you have $0. But until then, we can't help you. And they also called, I think, child protection on me, or child services on me, and they contacted me. And I was like, wow, like, they literally acted like they were going to help me all this time. They took all my information. I kept in touch with them the whole time. They told me they were trying to contact SAGA to confirm the rental unit was legal or illegal, but they never did, and they never got a hold of anybody. And in the end, they just literally called social services on me and told me, unless you're broke with $0 in your account, we're not going to help you. And if I was broke with $0 in my account, then I'm sure social services would get involved, and I could get in trouble for that. So at that point, I had to leave back to the US because that's the only place where I have, someone I know or somewhere I can go. And actually, before this, I went to SAGA, and I told them, this whole situation. They were actually very shocked, extremely shocked. But then when they looked in their system, they're like, oh, I know this apartment. Somebody else was living here for like a year before that. And I was like, yeah, I know. And how do you know? Like, how come you guys haven't done anything? And they were like, okay, well, we know this and we understand the situation, but there's no proof. We can't give you any letter or any proof that you're not allowed to be living there. We can tell you that you're not and that you need to leave, but we can't give you any written proof that this is a illegal sublet and that the tenant is not allowed to rent the apartment to you. So that's it. And I'm like, I really am not asking for any private information about the tenant. I'm just asking for proof, just to say this is, my name, and she doesn't live here. We don't have any record of her living here. And they wouldn't even do that. So I did some research, and I went back to SAGA before I left, and I handed them a demand letter, like in German, saying this is a request for information, of like a Freedom of Information Act type request. I'm requesting information about me, and if you have any records of me living in any of your apartments, I'm requesting that. And if you don't, then I'm requesting that information as well. And when I gave that to them, it seemed like they were ready to respond, and they did. And they sent me a letter by email saying I'm not registered at any of their apartments. So the whole situation of me having to come back to US, it cost so much money. I paid for so much money just to get to Germany. I lost out on employment opportunities and so much. It just caused so much damage. And when I reached out to Wunderflats and told them the situation, they threatened me, and they're like, this is legal. You have no proof that it's not legal. And we have proof from the landlord that they were given permission to sublet this apartment years ago. And if you don't pay rent, you're a rent debtor. And we believe that you're just trying to avoid paying rent, and just all these slanderous things to me. And just avoided the whole situation and said that we're going to have our legal team contact you. And then I responded and I said, well, give me your legal team contact information because I would like to speak to them. And they didn't give it to me. So this whole situation has been really difficult. I contacted so many different lawyers in Germany, in Hamburg and Berlin and other cities, but mostly Hamburg and Berlin because the company's based in Berlin and I was living in Hamburg. The contract was Hamburg. And everybody told me that it's not a situation that they can do right, that they can address right now, or that this is not something they would work with or work on. But mostly everyone said that they just can't do that right now. I contacted my tenants' rights organization and they kept telling me to call them on the phone. And I was like, okay, well, but every time I call, nobody is available that can speak English, so I'm not able to get helped. And I ended up calling them and I told them I need a lawyer, I need someone to like represent me or give me some assistance, and they said they would call me back and they never did. And I called them again and they never like answered, and I emailed them and they never answered my email. So it was like really almost pointless, you know, for them to not really assist me when I needed it. And as far as like anything else, I contacted the Hamburg Consumer Protection Agency or something like that, or consumer something. And right now they responded to me and said, well, how come the landlord isn't the one responsible and how come Wunderflats is? Well, I paid a $249 service fee to get them to create and facilitate a legal lease, legally binding lease. So I believe that they have some responsibility in this. And the landlord lives in Ukraine. I can't even get my deposit back, and I just asked them for that too, and they wouldn't give it to me. And they said that it's because it's a legal lease, but it's illegal. It's not legal, it's illegal. And I've proven that. So I've finally got like another agency involved. I don't know what it's called, like a mediator type agency in Hamburg, and they're, you know, contacting Wunderflats. And the only way that this alternative dispute resolution process will work is if Wunderflats agrees to participate. If they don't agree to participate, I will have to take this to a lawyer, and I will do that because I have a lot of damages, and it is something that I believe they're very negligent for. So for anybody, you know, thinking to rent through Wunderflats, it worked for me a few times, but you really have to be doing your due diligence. Like, make sure that the place that you're about to rent is even existing. Make sure that it's legally being sublet. Make sure, you know, you talk with the landlord a little bit if you can. Usually I don't think they really do that, but do everything you can to make sure that the place you're going to is somewhere that is somewhere legal and somewhere you can stay. So yeah, that's my information that I have today for people who are looking to rent in Hamburg. Other than that, I can tell you, you can keep applying for places. I think through SAGA. SAGA has like rentals that they're always offering, and I didn't really get any responses on any of the other websites. It was really difficult to find an apartment, but yeah, that's all.